I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Ultra Leadership. My guest today is Mary Kate Loftus. Mary Kate is an accomplished and trailblazing financial services leader. She is president of Impressia Bank, redefining the client-banker relationship, focusing on the advancement of women in business and the solutions necessary to leveling up the gender gap for funding. She sits on Plaid's Industry Advisory Board as a senior advisor collaborating with other experts leading efforts to advance open finance. She was executive vice president for digital at M&T Bank. During the global pandemic, Mary Kate led first-to-market digital strategies for M&T that ensured it remained fully connected to its customers. This work earned Mary Kate and her team the MX Innovator Award in 2020. In 2018, American Banker named Mary Kate the runner-up for Digital Banker of the Year, recognizing her work at HSBC Bank. In 2021, she was chosen for Deloitte's Women to Watch program, and she continues to stay involved as a mentor in their Rising Leaders program, well respected in the finance industry. In 2022, Global Connections for Women included Mary Kate on their Top Women in the World list. Also in 2022, Forbes named Mary Kate one of 6 women changing the face of leadership and banking and finance. Mary Kate was selected as vice chair of the Consumer Bankers Association Digital Channels Committee in 2022. Drawn to serve others in her community as well as the workplace, Mary Kate is co-chair of the Women United Leadership Society of Western New York and an advisor to Buffalo Women in Agile, and a volunteer advisor to Arbol, a startup supporting the ambitions of low-income college students. Welcome, Mary Kate.
Thank you, Greg. I'm so happy to be here today.
So let's jump right in. Let's give everybody a big win right out of the gate. You are always reading, always listening to things. So what book or podcast or what are you recommending to people these days?
Well, I will give you 2. The first is one I haven't read yet, but I have it and I can't wait. And it's Surrender by Bono. Very excited to read about his stories and this, traveling the world and what he's learned. And then the other is kind of like this. It's a new business book that was released called Objective Secure, and it's by Nick Lavery. It's not yet on the bestseller list, but I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Nick was the first amputee above the knee to be able to go back to active duty. And he's an expert on leadership, setting goals, and how you go about accomplishing them. And I just was I couldn't put the book down. It was great.
Wow. What a story about resilience, right? Wow. That's amazing. Okay. I got to get that. It's on my list now. Thank you.
Okay.
So leadership is important to you. So when you've been a leader for a while, so when you think of what you want people saying about you as a leader, how would you fill in the blanks of this statement? I am a blank leader who helps others blank.
I am an inspirational leader who helps others see what is possible.
I love that. So tell me a little bit more about that. What does that look like when you're day-to-day with your team or with your peers? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think what it really looks like is listening to people, and it's understanding what their talents are and also like what their dreams and ambitions are, helping as they're looking at what the work they have ahead of them. And as you ask questions, oftentimes the people have the answer inside of them. So what I enjoy doing is helping them to be able to see what's possible and inspiring them and building them up to say, all right, great. So how are you going to go solve that problem? How will you get after that? When I work with peers and even people that are senior to me, I love to understand how they see the problem and then connect those dots, because sometimes you have brilliant people that really know the way forward. And it's just adding a bit of imagination, creativity to be able to help them see, look around the corner a little bit to see where they can go. So that's always my most important part of working with people.
I love style. So stylistically, right? So there are people who, and especially when you're managing up like that, that style of leadership is just pure influence, right? You're just that. And it sounds like that's the way that you interact with your team as well, that you're not telling people what to do. You're recognizing, no, it's in you. So let's get it out of you. And you're unlocking that talent and facilitating people showing up and being their best.
Absolutely. And I think that's also part of when people feel able to do that. That's when they're able to really have fun at work. They keep the spark. They stay excited about what they're doing. So that's an important element to create a really effective workplace.
So that's some really cool stuff that you're doing. You've heard a lot of advice over the years. So what's some of the worst leadership advice you've ever heard? Let's get that out so that we can tell everybody listening if they've heard it, they can avoid it or if they haven't heard it, when they do hear it, they'll know, oh, this is bad advice.
Oh, I think the worst advice is the old advice to not be vulnerable. And I think it's one of these double-edged swords, particularly for women, right? When the everything that happened with Damar Hamlin in Buffalo, and you look at what Coach McDermott has done, and across the country, I mean, this has just taken off. And I think because it touched people so deeply in how Coach McDermott was able to lead his team through that. And what he really did was he was a vulnerable leader. And you had these NFL players that cried, on video, talking with the media, among each other. And when you step back to when the actual incident happened during Monday Night Football, he was the one that said, I have to listen to my players. I have to be with them. And he said something in an interview which really stayed with me. And it really ties back to vulnerability. He said, my job as a coach, it's not just the X's and O's, but it's about helping every person that I have responsibility for to be at their best, be healthy, be, contributing to the way they can. And I think that his vulnerability in saying that's my number one priority. It's not the outcome of the win. It's how we do it together and our ability to be together. So that vulnerability really stuck with me.
Yeah. And that reminds me of Brené's book, The Power of Vulnerability, of opening yourself up to be changed by that other person and taking the time the way that you do in your interactions with people, of just being vulnerable to being changed in that interaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this whole situation with Damar, who's on the mend, which is awesome. And the team, it was really beautiful to see that there might have been a message coming from upstairs with the league, but that the coaches showed leadership and the teams showed leadership in being vulnerable to going against what might have been an external higher up pressure to keep playing. And it wasn't about the game at that point. And that was tremendous leadership, not usual and ordinary, but really no, we need to do what's best right now. And what's best right now has nothing to do with football.
Absolutely. And I think, you and I have spoken quite a bit about vulnerability and leadership. And I think that this proves out the research, right? That it opens up creativity, it opens up belonging, a real sense of a team being together for a greater purpose. So it's a lesson for all of us.
Yeah, I love it. So I think I already know the answer to this, but because we've already touched on it a little bit, but when you're working with your team, Coach McDermott talked about it a little bit, that it's not just about the X's and O's, it's about taking care of people, that there's a balance. So when you think about all of the, where you spend your time, where do you spend most of your time as a leader?
As a leader, I believe most of your time has to always start with understanding the people that you're with. And it's really building that relationship and foundation. The next part of your time as a leader, and what I have always focused on doing, is creating that clear vision of where are we going and how are we going to get there. And it's not so much about what have you done, but it's about what challenges do you face and how can I help you there? And again, unlocking that. I believe the answer is always right there, but it's enabling that. And on a personal level, I'm very committed to making sure that I take the time to start my day, very consistently. It's the daily practices of reflecting and following that every single day so consistently, so you can look back and say, how did I spend my time? And did I do what I want to do? So the next day you can adjust and you can get back and continue to progress towards your goals.
Yeah, the ABCs, right? Align
That's right.
people, build bench strength, coordinate action. I love it. You follow the ABCs. So you're a learner, a lifelong learner. What's the biggest learning, or the biggest aha of just maybe just the past quarter?
I think that the biggest aha that I have had the past quarter has been that there is so much opportunity available. And a lot of times the people have the power within themselves to create the world that they want to live in. And that could mean, your environment, it could be your job, it could be what you're learning and how you're spending your time. But the aha is the power and really saying, I'm going to set this goal and get after it. One of the things that I did the past quarter was I've always had it on my bucket list to take a class at Wharton. I always just had it out there as a little bit of a dream. And I knew that I wanted to deepen my skill set in a particular area. And there's something that's so freeing in saying, I'm going to go ahead and go for that. And I did that. And it was so much fun. And I had such a wonderful experience. But it's not so much what I learned, but it was the process of going through it that for me was almost like a personal breakthrough. It was a lot of fun.
I love it. So as a mentor to other leaders, right? In your bio, you're mentoring people everywhere, even on your team and across the organization. What's the advice that you share most with the young leaders that you mentor?
Oh, I've had the same one for quite a while because I see it as something that gets in the way too much, and that's to let go of the fear. And I think that often people may slow themselves down and not perform at the level they would or not have the life that they would because they're concerned about the risks involved and what if. And often taking a moment to step back and understand that by not going forward, you've really already failed because you never tried to do it. So let go of the fear. And then for women, I always add on, let go of the guilt as well. So especially for working moms and say, you really can invest your time, be at your best, but you have to let go of that guilt. And that's the only way to truly succeed and become the whole well-rounded person you otherwise would have been.
I love that. And I want to stick with the fear a little bit too, because that voice of fear that's in our heads, right? So we could think we want to do something, and then there's that voice in our head that tells us that, oh, that's a bad idea, or a voice that'll tell us, oh, that'll never work. And then the loudest voice sometimes can be that voice of fear that just, it's not even rational. It's like, if you do this, something terrible is going to happen. And we all have those voices in our heads. They're just in there all the time. I'm not the only crazy person. I think we all have these voices that are competing for attention and they want to grab the steering wheel, right? Make the decision. How do you get that voice under control? How do you silence it, at least in the moment? Because it never goes away. I don't think it ever goes away. What's a technique that you use? Because you've taken that voice and said, just shut up, and you just keep going for it and achieving. So you have that voice and you just tell it to shut up. So what works for you? What's the technique that we can share with folks that they can try to silence that voice in those moments?
I think a huge tool is the power of having a network around you of trusted sponsors, mentors, friends, somebody that you can say, can I just bounce this off you and say it out loud? It's almost as if you say it out loud, you're able to then hear it, where it then takes away the power of just within your own echo chamber, so to speak. So I think that's a really, really powerful tool. And the other thing is making sure that you're in the right environment. Be around those people that raise your vibe. Be around those people that help you see what's possible, that have the high energy, that say, let's really look at this from all angles. And that in itself is really powerful in creating that environment. So you can just let go of the fear and just go.
Yeah, the power of community.
Hmm.
I love that. David White has a poem called Sweet Darkness, and the last line of the poem is, anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you.
I love that. It's so beautiful. And one of the books I almost said, because, I always have a stack of books by my nightstand. One of the books I almost mentioned was Mary Oliver. And I've been working my way through Mary Oliver's Devotions, it's called.
Yeah.
And there's the poem, The Journey, in there.
Yes.
And that's part of the rebirth. That's a beautiful, beautiful poem.
Right on. I love Mary Oliver. I love that poem. Yeah, sometimes the voice in our head is that anything or anyone that's too small for us, that our inner dialogue is too small, right? And so having the community of people around us who bring us alive, remind us, no, think bigger, right? Go achieve, right? Don't keep yourself smaller than you. Play a big game, go big, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's one total shift again? You lead teams, your teams have been very successful. What's the one behavior or practice that you think if everybody on the team did this, the team's performance would be unstoppable?
The first thing that always jumps to mind is not the right answer. The first thing they'll say, well, we have to focus more or we have to be more clear. But I believe the best thing would be implementing just more mindfulness. And it's more working to really make that part of a pattern of behavior that's just an accepted and norm that's how we behave and that's how we work as a team. And I think it's gained a lot of popularity and acceptance, and many people practice it, but it's just something still that in the day-to-day when you are going at a very high speed, it really takes discipline to say, I'm going to build this into part of my routine. So, we've done this, and Greg, thank you to your leadership working with our team on this, over the past few years, we did that quite a bit, was actually introducing mindfulness as part of leadership team routines and practices. And I think for any individual that taking that step back to be mindful, you'll see right away, it helps you make better decisions. It gives you clarity. It gets you into that flow state, right? Because that's like really where your leadership ability is able to shine, is when you get into the flow. So I think practicing mindfulness, and for leaders to really, really take a good look at that. And if you're not doing that, ask yourself, why am I not? What's holding me back? Is it a little fear? It's a little secret voice in my mind that's saying people will think I'm crazy if I do this, or they'll criticize it. But I think there's tremendous benefit, and the science backs it up.
Absolutely. Well, and that's where vulnerability comes back in again, right? Oh yeah, because we're going to practice mindfulness as a team. What is that going to look like? And then people, have judgments about it. And no, we're going to do it, and it works, and it'll help us all collectively and individually be better. Yeah. So I love it. So you're awesome, and like everybody, sometimes you might do some things that you get in your own way. And so I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I always talk about going to the edge, right? Going to the edge and then taking a step further. And so what's the way that you sometimes can get in your own way?
Oh, I love this question because everybody has these sorts of things. My personal getting in my own way is saying yes. And what's interesting is that the saying yes, when you are just starting in your career, it's a real asset. Boy, that's something that can really level you up and differentiate you. And most likely, most people that are on that journey, that's where they have a feeling of accomplishment and reward and recognition from saying yes. But as you move through through your evolution as a leader, what ends up happening is saying yes really can become a detriment, and not just to you, but to your team. And it's something that I really, in the last year or so have really said, how do I turn this into an ability where I say yes to where the real opportunity lies and where the real growth path to pursue is, but not saying yes to anything that otherwise detracts from there. So being really selective. So that's something that's always on my watch list, but I have to keep a real good eye on that one.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that one. I think that lots of leaders share that as it becomes you're right. It's helpful early on, and then it becomes a detriment because as you're saying yes, you spend a lot of time doing somebody else's work, right? And then you're not doing the work that only you can do, and things get lost. So we're nearing the end of our conversation. So I want to close with, I always like closing meetings and conversations with gratitude. So what are you grateful for today?
Oh, I am grateful for, it always starts with my family and my friends. I'm grateful that you invited me to be part of your conversation today. I enjoyed listening to your earlier podcasts, and I think it's just a lot of fun to sit and talk about this. So thank you, Greg, for opening the door for that. And I'm just grateful for where my life's at right now. Like the past few years have been amazing. The past year has been a real learning experience for me. And I feel that it's like one of the gifts of life is looking at your experiences like from just full circle. And as you continue on. So I'm in this awesome spot right now. I'm super happy and I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Parting companies, you're going to get the final word. Let's imagine you're giving a commencement address and this is your close. So how would you close your commencement address, to all these new graduates?
Oh, I would be smiling, staring out into all the beautiful young graduates and imagining as well, like, wow, they have so much ahead of them. But what I would say is that your legacy is not what you did, it's how you did it. Let life unfold and trust in that process. And it's not where you are, but it's what you do with what you've been given. And if you keep those three elements at the top of your mind, you're going to have a happy life.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I would be inspired sitting there. Now I throw my cap in the air. That's a great
Yes.
finish. Thank you, Mary Kate, so much for joining me today. This has been an awesome conversation. I've really appreciated it. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And as we always say, Greg, right on.
Right
this was
on.
A blast.
It's been awesome. Right on. Right on. Okay, so right on. Until next time, everybody, remember, managers run the present. Ultra leaders shape the future, change lives, and drive better results. If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, as a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.